Ethan Ward strode through the glass doors of the company cafeteria with the same commanding presence that made boardrooms fall silent. Every employee who noticed him straightened instantly, some out of respect, others out of fear. Ethan was known for running Ward Enterprises with precision, discipline, and a famously cold heart. He didn't waste time, he didn't tolerate distractions, and he certainly didn't expect anything unusual from the cafeteria on a dull Tuesday morning. He came only to meet a potential investor, nothing more, but fate had other plans. As he stepped forward, the familiar hum of chattering employees suddenly felt distant. Something tugged at his attention, so soft, so fragile that he almost thought he'd imagine it. Sir. He turned. Near a trash bin, barely tall enough to reach its lid, stood a small boy around 6 years old, thin as a twig, his dark hair messy, his clothes worn at the edges. In his tiny hands, he held a piece of bread so stale it bent like cardboard. The boy swallowed nervously, clutching the dry bread as if it were made of gold. "Sir, Mommy hasn't eaten since yesterday," he whispered, voice trembling. Can you share this expired bread?" The world around. Ethan stopped. For a moment. He no longer heard footsteps, clinking dishes, or murmurs, only the quiet desperation of a child too young to know shame, but old enough to feel hunger. Ethan had faced ruthless competitors, multi-million-dollar crises, and reporters trying to ruin him. None of them ever made his heart pause. But this single question, this tiny trembling voice, pierced through the armor he had built over decades. He took a slow step closer. The boy didn't move away. He simply lifted the dry bread toward him, as if offering something precious. His eyes were wide, not with fear, but with hope. Hope so fragile, Ethan felt it might break if he breathed too harshly. Expired bread, Ethan repeated softly, his voice strangely unsteady. The boy nodded. "It's okay if it's old. Mammy just needs something. Anything." Ethan's throat tightened. He had seen poverty in reports, statistics, charity proposals, but seeing it here, in his own building, holding stale bread from his own cafeteria, felt like a silent accusation. He glanced around. Employees were watching, some ashamed, some confused, none daring to approach. The boy stood alone, brave and desperate in a world far too big for him. Ethan realized then that power meant nothing if he couldn't protect the vulnerable standing right in front of him. And all of it began with 6 small words. Mommy hasn't eaten since yesterday. Ethan lowered himself to one knee so he could look the child directly in the eyes. The boy's lashes trembled, his small shoulders rising and falling with quiet, frightened breaths. Ethan softened his voice in a way he hadn't used in years, cautious, almost protective. Where's your mom's son? The boy hesitated, then lifted a thin arm and pointed toward the far corner of the cafeteria, the cleaning section. Ethan followed the direction of his finger, and what he saw made his chest tighten. A young woman, no older than her late 20s, was wiping the tiled floor with slow, exhausted motions. Her uniform hung loosely on her frail body, sleeves rolled up over arms that looked far too thin. Her back curved inward as though life had pressed its weight on her for too long. Even from a distance, Ethan noticed the way her legs shook each time she tried to stand straight. It wasn't just tiredness, it was hunger. Pure, draining hunger. She was his employee. She worked under his roof. And yet he had never once seen her. Never once wondered about the people who cleaned the floors he walked on so confidently. Ethan rose to his feet. The boy rushed toward her, tugging gently at her sleeve. Mommy. I talked to the man. The woman turned with alarm, and when she saw Ethan Ward, the CEO, the man whose name people whispered about, her face strained of color. Panic flickered in her eyes. She grabbed her son and pulled him close as though expecting punishment. "I'm so sorry, sir," she said quickly, breath shaking. "He shouldn't bother you. Please forgive him." Her voice was thin, barely steady, but filled with shame she didn't deserve. Ethan wasn't angry, not even close. If anything, shame washed over him. Hot, heavy, and unexpected. "Your son didn't do anything wrong," he said quietly. The woman looked confused. Most CEOs would have dismissed her, yelled, or at best, ignored her. She probably prepared herself for all of that, but not for kindness. Ethan took a slow step closer, truly seeing her now, seeing the exhaustion etched into her face, seeing the dark circles under her eyes, the trembling fingers that tried to keep holding the cleaning cloth, the courage it took to work while starving just so her child could eat. How long has it been since you've eaten? He asked softly. Her lips parted, but she looked away, unable to answer. That silence told him more than words ever could. Employees nearby pretended not to stare, but Ethan felt their eyes. They had walked past her countless times, just like he had. All of them had overlooked her suffering. A suffering happening inside his company, under his leadership. For the first time, the powerful CEO felt small. Asterisk. And that realization hurt more than anything he had ever faced in a boardroom.
Everything okay?
Yes, just thinking.
This is yummy.
Ethan didn't give anyone in the cafeteria a chance to whisper or judge. With a single firm command, he ordered the kitchen staff to prepare fresh, warm meals, real meals, and bring them immediately to the executive dining room. His voice left no room for hesitation. Asterisk. The young mother shook her head the moment she realized where he intended to take them. Asterisk, sir, please. We don't belong there, she murmured, clutching her son protectively. The embarrassment in her eyes was sharp and painful, as if life had taught her never to expect kindness. Asterisk, but her son, standing beside her, looked up at Ethan with wide, hopeful eyes. Asterisk, Mommy, can we eat together? He whispered. That tiny voice broke whatever resistance she had left. Ethan's expression softened. You belong anywhere? I say you do, he replied calmly. Come. Asterisk. And so they followed him nervously, hesitantly through the silent hallways. Employees stepped aside to let them pass, baffled at the sight. The strict CEO walking with a janitorial worker and her child as though they were honored guests. Asterisks inside the executive dining room. Polished wood tables and soft leather chairs waited beneath warm lighting. It was a place reserved for elite clients and upper management. People who never knew hunger. Asterisk. The mother stood frozen at the doorway, afraid to sit, afraid to breathe. But Ethan pulled out a chair for her. Please, he said simply. Asterisk. After a few trembling seconds, she sat. Her son climbed onto the chair beside her, eyes shining with excitement. Asterisk. The staff brought plates of hot soup, fresh bread, roasted chicken, steamed vegetables, and fruit food. The boy stared at it as though he'd never seen anything so magical. Asterisk. When the first spoonful touched her lips, the mother immediately stopped, tears filling her eyes. She looked down, murmuring, I don't deserve this, sir. Asterisk. Ethan took his seat across from them, leaning forward slightly. Yes, he said gently. You do. Slowly, she began to eat. As the warmth of real food eased her trembling body, she opened up, not in dramatic confessions, but in small pieces, revealed between hesitant bites and careful pauses. Her husband had died suddenly. She had been left with a child, debts, and no family to help. Asterisk. She worked double shifts to survive, choosing every day to feed her son first and starve herself. On the hardest days, she pretended she wasn't hungry so her child wouldn't worry. Ethan listened in complete silence. With each word, something inside him shifted like layers of ice melting. After years of being frozen solid, he wasn't thinking like a CEO anymore. He wasn't thinking about profits, meetings, or reputation. He was thinking like a human being, like a father. Asterisk. As he watched the little boy finally eat his fill and laugh softly for the first time that day, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in years. Humanity, warm, heavy, real. It humbled him and changed him. The following morning, the atmospheric sideward enterprises felt strangely different. Rumors had already spread quiet. Buzzing whispers about how the powerful CEO had been seen escorting a janitorial worker and her child into the executive dining room. No one knew the details, but everyone sensed something had shifted. Asterisk. The young mother certainly felt it when she received a message instructing her to report to the CEO's office. Her hands shook as she walked along corridor. Her son held her fingers tightly, sensing her fear. Asterisk. I must have done something wrong, she whispered, voice trembling. Asterisk. But when she reached the top floor and the receptionist politely welcomed her inside, her confusion only grew. Asterisk. Ethan Ward stood by the window, sunlight outlining his tall figure. He didn't look cold today. He didn't look like the distant man who terrified the corporate world. He looked calm, thoughtful, human. Asterisk. Please, have a seat, he said gently. Asterisk. She sat slowly, gripping her son's hand as though it were the only anchor she had left. Ethan walked to his desk, picked up a folder, and placed it in front of her. Asterisk. I'm not here to reprimand you, he began. I'm here to give you a new start. Asterisk. Her eyebrows furrowed in confusion. Her breathing grew quick. Ethan opened the folder. Inside was a new employment contract, one for a stable administrative role with better hours, a living wage, full health benefits, and a housing allowance. Asterisk. I don't understand, she whispered, voice breaking. Why would you do this for someone like me? Asterisk. Before Ethan could answer, her son stepped closer to him, as if he already trusted the man completely. The small boy smiled shyly, lifting the same hopeful gaze that had stopped Ethan's world the day before. Asterisk. Ethan's eyes softened. Asterisk. Because your son reminded me of something I forgot a long time ago, he said, kneeling to meet the boy's height. He reminded me what real hunger looks like, not just for food, but for kindness, dignity, and hope. Asterisk. The mother covered her mouth as tears streamed down her face. She didn't cry because of the new job or the financial lifeline it offered. She cried because, for the first time in years, someone had seen her suffering and cared enough to change it. Asterisk. Ethan stood again and glanced out his glass window. Where the city buzzed with its usual indifference, Asterisk, I built a company that was feared, he said quietly. But I want to build one that is also humane. From that day on, people looked at Ethan Ward differently. Not just as a single-dad CEO who ran a powerful empire, asterisks, but as the man who stopped for a child holding expired bread and chose compassion over pride, a man who rediscovered his heart through the smallest of